Hey everyone. I'm not sure how many people are tuned in right now, but I'm Kate and this is Alex. Yeah, I can introduce myself. Yeah, I'm a software engineer. I work at FieldKit. Also the founder of Silicon Savannah Solutions. Yeah, Alex, you can introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Alex. I am a software engineer at a company based in Germany called Feather Insurance, and we make software for insurance. That's what it is. And I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Alex and I met when we were both in Kenya, or yeah, I moved to Kenya. I was working doing a little company called Mobaneo that unfortunately no longer exists. It was a little startup to work on land surveying software. Um, trying to document land around the world, specifically in Kenya. Um, yeah, and brought on Alex to do the web app there, and yeah, fantastic job. That you did a fantastic job, and it was great to have you. I interviewed actually quite a few people. I don't know if you knew how many people I interviewed there, but you did a fantastic job. Um, yeah, had you as an intern, and then kind of a I think I eventually gave you a raise and an employee, and yeah, you ended up after that moving to Germany, and been doing so many great things. And so we thought we would talk about my kind of journey moving to Kenya, your move process of moving to Germany, and yeah, all the adventures that we've had. Um, so yeah, I don't know if you want to talk about your skills and the things that you've done.
Sure. Also, thank you for the lovely intro. It's very flattering. I actually think we met when I think I reached out to you requesting for like a resume review just for feedback while I was applying for roles, and then you offered me to interview for Mobinio, and then that's how I got in. Sorry, I realized I was rambling. What was the original question?
Oh, no, you weren't,
Yeah.
not at all.
Okay.
But yeah, I was
Uh-huh.
just asking talking about your experience. I mean, you were doing React for Mobineo, or
Yes.
Mobineo. I mean, it's pronounced, yeah, whatever, but it's pronounced.
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah, what and you end up moving to Germany. So tell me a little more what you did in Germany there.
Oh. So just for clarification, purely when I started out, it was front end, and then after a couple months working with you, I applied for a different role, work as a developer advocate. And for those unfamiliar with the role, a developer advocate is someone who wears multiple hats, and the hats are sometimes you're a software engineer where you experiment with the product that your company is building, and then you are kind of the customer support and product person where you interface with the customers to understand what their challenges are and then write some documentation about it. So while I was working as a what's the role called? A working student. That's what they're called because they work like 20 hours. After a couple months, I was finishing uni. I asked my manager what the next steps are, and that's when they offered me a full-time position at the company, Prisma. And after which, they also asked me if I would be interested in moving to Germany. And that's when I said, why not? Because new experience, new country, who would want to experience that straight out of college as well? And that's how I found myself in Germany. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty similar story on my end. I was working at crop or yeah in university, and got yeah kind of pushed by crop nutrition, and yeah, I had been doing study abroad in university, and then they kind of looked at my resume and like, oh, I think I had on there like elementary
Mhm.
level Swahili, which is generous to my level of Swahili. I think most elementary level students can run circles
Mhm.
around my Swahili. Yeah, but I told them that, and they were just like, "Oh no, it's fine." It's just, but you had been to Kenya before, and then they yeah, technology, but I did in technology and agriculture, and they were yeah interested
Mhm.
in talking. So I ended up going working there, and yeah, it was an amazing experience. And you know, right out of school, you don't have a lot of commitments, so it's just like, why not? Just
Yeah,
an adventure.
yeah.
Um,
They tell you
so
say yes to every opportunity, any opportunity that comes. But yeah, that changes. Yeah.
yeah, 100%. So yeah, what were some of the challenges that you faced moving to Germany?
Um, so I'd actually start by actually saying that I consider myself lucky that I didn't face most of the challenges other people who moved to Germany face. But the first that very obvious is like the language barrier. They say that most people in Berlin speak English. They can, but not everyone speaks English. By default, it's usually German. And my German is good enough, or rather, they say in if I translate it, is that I speak train station, and that means you can't speak much. It's just the bare minimum just to get by.
Feel that about
So therefore,
Swahili.
language, yeah. So the language barrier was definitely one. I guess just settling in because the way of culture was significantly different. In the sense that, for example, like if you go to a supermarket in Kenya, there's likely someone who'll help you with the groceries and packing them. And in Germany, that's not the case. You have to learn. I had to learn how to be completely independent. And in some supermarkets, they scan the products so fast that you just at the other side feeling kind of helpless. Like they scanned all this, so what do I do? So yeah, there was just that mild trauma from just a shopping experience, but I got used to it eventually. Other than that, I guess the social system is a little different, where most people already have their own social circles and are not necessarily as open to making friends. But that has also changed, and it changes with time. And I think the most significant was the seasons. I'm still not used to the idea of seasons 3 years later because I'm just used to rainy or dry. And now it's 4 seasons and sometimes snow, which is again weird. Oh, and time and daylight savings. I still have no idea what that is about 3 years later.
Yeah. Sorry
Yeah.
for I mean, I'm not German, but daylight savings,
Mhm.
yes, those graduate system.
Yeah.
Yeah, I welcome Kenneth. Yeah, I think laughing a little bit of your um uh,
Mhm.
I think there's a German word for laughing at your struggles a little bit. I forget the word for that.
Ah, do you mean the one where you laugh at someone else's misfortune? I should, or rather, you're happy because someone else failed. I don't remember that one, but I think Trevor Noah's ever mentioned it once in his specials when he
Yeah.
used to still do that. Yeah.
Well, anyways,
Schadenfreude. Yes, Schadenfreude. That was the word.
that's it. That's it. I think we have a little short of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think yeah, there was definitely I had a little bit easier time going from uh you know US to Kenya, at least with my job, because I had already been to Kenya before in my study abroad experience. But yeah, in my study abroad experience, it was a little bit eased in because I was with American students during that time, and they kind of eased us through. The first week we were there, we were kind of just American students and then some staff at um, yeah, a safari area, and it was very kind of like eased slowly into the culture, and it wasn't like smack dab in the middle of a city. And so I think you were a little bit more smack dab in the middle of work, right?
Yeah. New country, new language, new way of life. An interesting one is, I guess, this is not related to work necessarily, but IKEA. I experienced my
Oh,
first IKEA in Germany. Therefore, I
that's
was
an
buying
overwhelming
furniture.
experience.
Not quite, or rather, yes, no. But we'll explain the yes. But where, in Kenya, I'm used to, if you buy something heavy furniture, there's someone probably with a pickup truck that will charge you a little extra, and or maybe if you pay them a little extra, they can help you carry it up the stairs to your apartment. And when I came here, I asked my colleague how exactly to buy furniture, and I was told, just rent a truck or a van that right outside IKEA. And what I didn't know is that I needed a driver's license, and I also assumed that it possibly came with a driver. So it was 7 p.m. In the peak of winter, January, out in the cold with this bed boxed up. Um, Kind of confused how to get home, but I got lucky that I found like one of those massive taxi vans, and I carried it up the stairs myself. But it was kind of like a shock where I guess everything's not particularly obvious. One of the ways that I kind of had to relearn a few things, but interesting experience nonetheless.
Yeah. Yeah, for me it was 10 years ago, so I'm trying to remember some of the stuff.
Mhm.
Oh, even just heating water was weird for me, and the heating
Mhm.
bucket. I'm trying to remember
Uh,
for showers was, I mean, there was the even the shower that was like turning it
mhm.
on for the hot water that was heated above for you, like because I'm
Yeah.
used to the hot water through the pipes. That was weird, and it was also scary because I was just like, "Am I gonna get electrocuted by this?" And so I did the hot water thing in the bucket because I was scared of electrocuted of the one that went above, in the
Yeah.
place, and so, um, I was in the middle class place, so it was, at least there was heated water, but, like, that
Mhm.
was, something that was a little bit, there weird. I'm trying to remember some of the other ones. Yeah, there was definitely stuff like that. Just the matatus to get around, was
Yeah.
definitely different. I found out that the matatus, were sometimes run by gangs, and they're like, "But it's safe, it's fine." Um, and it is. Like, I still
Mhm.
rode matatus, and I never had any trouble. Um,
Yeah.
but, like, they're like, "Yeah, you know, you'll be fine." And I was fine. But, yeah. I hope my mother doesn't want to watch this, she'll be terrified. Um,
Anyway, we're already past that, so it's not concern.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was fun, it was great. Yeah, but definitely, like, the little things, like, just, like, the different
Mhm.
daily life stuff, everything kind of, negotiating things was there. Is just, like, I didn't know the price of anything, and there's no prices on anything, and they give you
Yeah.
the Mzungu price, so for anyone listening, the white person price. And I just didn't know the price of anything, and so, I would go shopping with Kenyan friends, and they would kinda help me out, um,
Mm.
figuring out, like, how much should I pay for stuff? Um, yeah, but I would just kinda go for
Mm.
the ones that said, like, the 10 shillings that were listed on there, so I'd go for the really cheap bins because 'cause I'm just like,
Mhm.
I at least know the price on that, and, like, I'm
Yeah.
not getting I'm not getting overcharged,
Yeah.
so it worked out. Um, yeah, so, kinda going down the list here, yeah, what can companies do to help, employees settle in a little better?
There's a lot. Not a lot sometimes kind of it's more like a shared responsibility anyway. I also have a few other friends here who've also settled in Germany. So I think like my previous company, Prisma, they significantly helped me, at least for example, with the visa application process. They
Mhm,
helped me provide all the documents because again, flying abroad was also kind of like a new thing, a new experience for me. Um, I also got support with like the moment I got here, the company had already arranged a place that I could live in for about 2 months as I kind of just figured my stuff out, like where to stay and just settle in to ease in as well. And my colleagues were also very great in the sense that I think my manager received me at the airport, which was like a really nice gesture as well. And another ways that kind of way to settle in was they actually paid for my German classes for about 3 months because it's kind of a language that you need to use for the day to day. As much as they say that in Berlin you don't necessarily need German, in some places you kind of do, and you will meet a couple of people who don't speak any English, or rather
Mhm.
they speak German and another language, and you don't want to be perhaps the ignorant tourist who only knows English or can't communicate. So it's kind of just learn their culture because just to ease in. Yeah. Other than that, that's mostly it. Yeah. I uh, yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's great. Yeah. I think because 'cause I'd been to Kenya before, I was a little bit more
Hmm.
thrown into things. So
Hmm.
I just kinda
Hmm.
did they pick me up from the airport? I don't remember. I just remember, yeah, I got into an apartment or got into a hotel and yeah, I kinda
Hmm.
just figured it out and it worked out fine, you know, I
Hmm.
figured it out, and I kinda already knew some Swahili, so didn't really
Yeah.
need, yeah, but yeah, definitely a
Additional.
similar thing is, like,
Hmm.
you don't need Swahili in Kenya, but it definitely helps. Like,
Yes, it
negotiating
is.
at the, super like, or at the market, you're gonna get much better prices.
Yes.
There's people that don't speak English, and that, you know, you're
Yeah.
gonna you're just gonna have a much easier time.
Yeah.
And people smile a bit when you just, do a greeting in Swahili. And, it just starts things off on a good note, like you're attempting to learn the culture, and you're making an effort.
Yeah.
People seem to appreciate that. Um, versus Yeah, I don't know. It makes sense though, because you're not trying to just force your own culture, that you're at least trying. And it just eases the conversation a little bit more. And so I've found it useful, even
It
if
does.
it's not completely necessary. Like you'll survive without it, but
Yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah. I know something we kind of talked about before this conversation, kind of
Yeah.
speaking of languages and communication, was the like even in English, this difference between direct and indirect communication.
Yes.
So I can kind of go into that a little bit. But like one of the things that happened to me when I was a study abroad student was there was a lot of the students, it was MSID, so it was Minnesota Studies in International Development. So a lot of the students were from Minnesota, but there were students actually from all over the country in this program. They asked me where I was from, and I was like, "Oh, Minnesota," and they're like, "Oh, you'll do fine here." And I asked like why, and I was a little confused, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, the students from Minnesota and the students from, like, the Midwest in general tend to do better in Kenya."
Hmm.
And again, like, super confused, and asked why, and they said they have a more indirect style of speaking, um,
Yeah.
and versus, like, the coastal regions in the United States have a more
Hmm.
direct style of communication, a more kind of forward, kind of, um, forceful way, like, of speaking versus, uh, sometimes called passive aggressive. I think it's a little more nuanced than that, but
Yeah.
yeah, it can be. Um,
Yeah.
it's sometimes said, like, if you don't got anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Um, kind of that. And like there's a lot of things
Mhm.
in an indirect style of communication that are unsaid, and that we were talking about. And Kenyans can kind of sometimes be the same way.
Yes.
And so the coastal students would really struggle because like Kenyans can. yeah, like, often leaves things unsaid, and yeah, I know you were talking about Germany and kind of that experience. I don't know if you wanna go into that as well.
Oh, sure. So I guess one thing that I kind of had to relearn in the last 3 years was how I communicate in English. And the one thing that stuck out is that the English in Kenya is mostly implicit. Like we give you half the context, mostly because you
Mhm.
kind of connect the rest of the dots either in your brain or you kind of assume we already have the context. And I have no idea where that comes from, but I guess it's just the way we communicate and I understand it. And then the moment I came to Germany, I would say just make a statement, say I did this and this, but and then 10 questions would already come up to be a little bit more specific. I mean, the German language itself is already very, very specific. I mean, you have
Mm,
words for expressing really complicated feelings, right? So it's I did have like difficulty how I communicated where I had to unlearn this implicit way and actually state everything that needs to be stated in what in my say message or how I communicated, and it's been also really helpful and really freeing. And when I come back to Kenya, it's kind of like the reverse culture shock where I'm already used to the explicit way and I am enjoying the explicit way because there's no room for miscommunication. And then in Kenya, it's like, what did you just say? I mean, that's you there's so much that there's so much room for misunderstanding, but I'll try to assume that you have no ill intentions, but I'll ask clarifying questions. Yeah, so that's
yeah.
mostly been it. Yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed, like, even people, like, it's one country, but the
Mhm,
United States, like, yeah, people from the coast that come to Minnesota, like, when I was a
mhm,
student, yeah, there was some students from New York that came to, that I worked with, and, yeah, they had a really hard
mhm,
time adjusting, um,
mhm,
and, they I was working with them, and, I was explaining some of, like, the talking patterns of Minnesotans, and, yeah, I
mhm,
was just like yeah, one of the things I was explaining is if someone says something is interesting, it means it's not interesting at all. I was just like, if someone says, "Oh, that's interesting," it means
I think it's probably almost the same, but it could be anything with the English, the Kenyan English. Could be they actually mean it or they actually don't mean it. So who knows? Just assume the best. Yeah.
yeah, in this particular case, I
Yeah.
was watching the conversation and I was just like, they did not find that interesting whatsoever. Like, you were talking way too long and the
Uh,
person was completely
uh,
out of it. And I had to like pull them aside and be like,
mhm,
um, just so you're aware. And they were like, um, I don't think it wasn't a particular instance, but I was just like,
mhm,
here's just so you're like, I'd seen them mess up a few times and I was just like, here just so you're aware, like, here are some particular things. And they were like horrified. And I was just like,
mhm,
yeah, I don't know. This is just the way it is. And they're like, why can't they just say what they mean? Why can't they just do that? Why can't they just be a
mhm,
certain way? And I'm just like, I don't know, you want to change a whole culture? Good luck. Um, yeah, and I don't know. Um, and
yeah,
I don't know, I at that point been to Kenya and traveled a bit more, and so I was just like, you just
mhm,
accept the culture as it is, and I accept Minnesota culture as it is, I accept Kenyan culture as it is, you gotta accept
yeah,
German culture as it is, it is what it is.
mhm,
And, yeah, and there's advantages and disadvantages to all of it, but, yeah, I mean, one of the things that I took away from us working together that I, continue to do,
mhm,
um, is, like, when we first started working together, we sat down I don't forget if it was, like, coffee or food, but we sat down and we were, like I was just like, "Hey, I'm American
mhm,
and I'm kind of an idiot sometimes,
mhm,
um, and I I don't always like, as much as I can get a lot of the things in Kenyan culture, I don't always get it,
yeah,
like like,
yeah,
um, just be direct with me, and I think we had a really good working relationship, with that. And
I mean,
like,
we're here, so yeah.
wow.
I'm just saying.
But
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
it's something that I've continued to do, and it's some that conversation is a conversation I've continued to have when doing in Silicon Savannah Solutions. Is like,
Mhm.
um, yeah, and I've added on to that conversation of things I've learned, like, you know, like one of the conversations I've added on to that is like, um, if there is if you can't meet a deadline, like, just let me know, you know what I mean? And like be proactive and like have this. And then another conversation I've added on to that, like this kind of like repertoire of conversations is like, um, you know, if um is like this way of in Kenyan culture there is Kenyan culture can and I think we talked about this before, but like can be pretty authoritative in the way that like adults for children and like bosses over employees can be like you don't question your boss.
Yeah,
um and like that in American culture, like it's a very different. And like if you don't like ever suggest to an American boss that they do something different,
yeah,
they'll kind of think you're dumb, which is not good. And it's not super helpful. And I've unfortunately heard some things that I don't find super savory from Americans about other cultures because of this.
mhm,
um but like I think it's super helpful to sit down and say like, "Hey, here's like when I'm working with Kenyans, especially when the Kenyans are not going to be working under me directly, but going to be working with under someone else. I'll be like, "Hey, here's how Americans are going to kind of perceive that." Um and
yeah,
like, you don't have to say like, Don't do that, you're stupid." Like,
yeah,
you know, but, like, if you have a suggestion, say, like, "Hey, I read this article about a different way of doing state management, in, React or Flutter or whatever language you're doing. What if we try attempting to do it this way? And, like, how is a polite way that you can kind of approach this problem?" And, and it's like, it depends on the context, right? Like, that's a
yeah,
pretty polite way to do it. And,
yeah,
like, you would question your boss more one-on-one than you would in a group. But even in a group, you can kind of question it more than you would in Kenyan culture. But you would question them less if their boss is there in the room, right? Like you take it nuanced and you take it individually based on the boss. Like, um, I'm pretty open being questioned. I'm kind of, it doesn't bother me all that much. The I don't think you can probably speak to that better than I can. But like there's some people who it does bother, even in American culture. There's people that are more traditional than others. Like it's a nuanced culture, like any other culture. Um,
yeah,
and it just depends. And so, like, try making a small. The thing I'll tell when I'm working with Kenny is make a small suggestion, see how it goes, and if it goes
yeah.
well, then make a bigger suggestion, and like just kind of gauge your thing. And if it,
How it's
you know,
perceived. Yeah,
and see how it goes.
yeah,
But if you don't make any suggestions, especially in American culture and a lot of European cultures as well, you're it's not going to be perceived well.
yeah. I do agree. I think also like one of the, I guess, uh, difficult conversations we also had when we started working out was that I had to be also kind of more transparent as well. And not that I was being dishonest or anything, but I guess or rather, I had a fear of kind of speaking my mind because you're afraid of how it would be perceived. But I guess something that I've had to learn kind of the hard way is that people are more understanding than you think. So it's kind of safe to not assume the worst. So I think at some point I was busy with school, doing a hackathon. I wasn't able to give Mobinho the time and effort that it deserved. Fortunately, I didn't communicate it that well and then led to a little frustration and friction. But the moment I clarified it, you're very understanding, encouraged me to take time off, which was really great. And that's something that I'm also learning more and more, where it's kind of unconscious that you're told not to kind of question authority from school and at home. I hope things are changing in this century, at least, but at least something that I'm unlearning is kind of being able to speak my mind, because it's not that something bad's going to happen, but it
Mhm.
leads to a more fruitful conversation. Because who knows, maybe you have an idea that, I don't know, that it's not that it's better, but it's leads to a great conversation, so to say, specifically even at work in that context. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think unfortunately, maybe
Mhm.
this is something I should say on a podcast, but I will. Unfortunately, like Kenya has a history of colonialism, and like the history of colonialism was a very authoritarian kind of history. And
Yeah.
so it was very like top down. And so I think a lot of like the leadership models
Mhm.
is taken from that. Um, and I'm not a super great historian of like pre-colonial history models. My understanding is it was a lot more collective.
Mhm.
Um, but like I think there is still a lot of that history and like on how leadership models exist in Kenya, and a lot of that has to be unlearned. Um, you know, and it'll take time. Um, but it's
Yeah.
something that I like. It just yeah, it's unfortunate, but yeah, it exists.
Yeah.
It's there. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, we had a question from Kenneth on the side. I don't know if you can see it. Um,
And I can. Yeah.
um, Yeah, I can send you a map that I have of the different hubs. Happy to send that to you. I also have a post that I did on Silicon Savannah Solutions of 6 different co-working spaces, but I also have a bigger map that I have of tech hubs in Kenya. I'm planning on posting another post that's specifically Mombasa based.
Mm.
As far as how's the tech industry and talent in Kenya, um, yeah, it's a big question. The tech industry, um, yeah, I mean, it's growing. I think there's a lot of growing pains in the tech industry in Kenya. And with that growing pains, there's a lot of unpaid internships, which is not something I believe in. But it exists. But um, like with with those growing pains, there's a lot of people that are like new in the industry and not a lot of people kind of more senior that can kind of advise them in a lot of ways. It's evened out a little bit, I think, since I've first started talking about this. Um, but AI is also kind of shooking it up a little bit as well. Um, yeah, and there's a lot of resources, there's a lot of hubs that you can definitely go to. Kenya is a lot better off than a lot of African countries as far as like investment goes of capital dollars, but it's still certainly a lot less than the United States, like per capita or per even wealth. Um, it's all relative. I don't know, Alex, you have something to add to that?
I'd only add on to the network. I think I'm not sure if this is still a thing because it's been a while since I attended one of the meetups, but I think there's still a couple of interesting um tech specific meetups, at least in Nairobi. Still sometimes related to the hub, which would be interesting to visit to get people to would be interested in perhaps working with you as well. But there's
Yeah.
pretty great talent there, yeah, I'd say.
Yeah. I run a little group called Tech Events Kenya. The WhatsApp group is unfortunately full right now, but we post tech events. It's just a feed of tech events. I need to probably post it somewhere else and have that feed go somewhere else at some point rather than a WhatsApp group because that WhatsApp group has been full for a while. But yeah, it's definitely a big community. And yeah, it's it's thriving in a lot of ways. It definitely has its, it's it can be hard to break into, I think, the tech industry, but once you get like senior, mid or senior, I think you can find a really good career in it. Um, but it can be hard to break into. It can be really kind of competitive and challenging to get a certain level of experience, but once you get that experience, I think it can be pretty lucrative, especially compared to a lot of, industries in Kenya. It's my perspective. So, yeah. I guess, yeah. Uh, Down on my list, keep going, keep talking. Was resumes and talking about that. So one of the things I've kind of noticed is Kenya, since we've been talking. Oh, we have another question, but yeah, I'll finish this topic. I think. Yeah, thank you for the question. I will definitely get to it. Um, One of the things I've noticed is that since we've both been in Kenya, that's kind of the shared one, and then yeah, the United States and Germany is kind of the two different ones. Kenya has Kenyan universities don't tend to teach resumes, which is an interesting thing. So in the United States, we have a required class that teaches, like, I think it was my speech class that taught resumes. It was just plugged into a random class. And then we have career centers that are full time, which you can go into at any time and they will go through your resume constantly. My knowledge is, I don't know of any universities in Kenya that do that. Are you aware of any, Alex?
Not the university I studied in, at least, but I think I remember being taught something to do with resume writing, at least in high school. Probably not the
I've
most
heard that a
useful
little bit.
time. Yeah, probably not the best time because, but it was all part of
Valid.
kind of oral, not oral literature, but just some form of literature where you're just writing different forms of documents, whether it's a letter or a resume. But yeah, I think you were talking about this backstage, and I guess the biggest difference is that ours are fairly, let's just call it worded. Yeah, compared to most of the resumes from, say, Germany and or the US as well.
Yeah, and so the thing that I've advised a lot of people in Kenya on resumes, especially ones that want to apply to American like remote jobs. And thing I say is like look up how Americans do resumes. They tend to be shorter. They tend to be 1 to 2 pages. Like one right when you're out of school, two when you're a little bit further in your career. Um, yeah, you were talking Germany tends to just be 1 page.
Yeah.
You know, and so you got to look up the standards because yeah, if you're applying, like if I was applying to a German job, I need to know that it's only going to be 1 page and I need to shorten my resume, right? So,
Yeah.
if you're applying to a different, country, you got to look up their standards. Some countries have pictures on their resumes. That's not a thing in the United States. I think some Asian countries, that's a thing. Um,
Mhm.
you know, it's definitely not a thing in the United States, like, that's gonna be very taboo. We view that as, like, a form of, like, gender or racial discrimination, like, possible to do that, and we just not gonna have it. Even, like, a lot of our things will automatically take the name off of it, and, like, we have scripts that automatically do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, obviously put your name on your resume, but, like, there's scripts that'll automatically take it off and then put it back on when, after reviewing. But that's not something you have to worry about. Yeah, just look up the standard in the country. Even if you're applying to cross cultural jobs, um, it's important to do. Um, yeah, if possible, have someone from that country look through your job your resume. Um, yeah, it's it's an important step in the process. When I was applying to the job in Kenya, they gave it back and said make it longer. I had a
Mm.
one-page one, and it ended up being 4 pages by the end of it, and I was just like, "What the heck is this?" Um, and I got the job, but it was weird. Um, but yeah, I don't know. That's all I had to really say about that. For Kenan's question, what about the entrepreneurial aspect? I'm assuming about Kenya here. Are there people making new apps, AI, blockchain, etc.? Yeah, I mean, there's definitely ones in Kenya. Um, I think, uh, as I said, the funding is really competitive. I'm trying to think. I don't know of any of. I know there's a firm that does a fair amount of AI, but they do it for a lot of American companies. I'm trying to think. I mean, there's a lot of people investing in blockchain in Kenya. I'm not a huge fan of blockchain, to be honest, for a lot of things. Surprisingly, the one thing I'm a fan of it is for land because I think um, it's a asset that doesn't change ownership all that often. I don't like it for money investment because I think it's a Ponzi scheme. Don't cancel me. Um, I mean, it's made people a lot of money. It's also lost people a lot of money. So, you know, what do you do? Um, Entrepreneurial aspect, yeah. There's definitely things. Aquarutch is one that comes to mind that they sell fish feed using an app. And they are fairly successful. So they sell in Kisumu, sell fish feed. There's been a few other ones here or there, but they didn't. They're a lot more like warehouses and infrastructure, and the app is kind of secondary. Um, I think that's where a lot of things are kind of going.
Yeah. But the market is also fairly different in the sense that, or the challenges that Kenya has are not necessarily the challenges that the US or Germany has. So people are fairly innovative in different ways. Say, for example, M-Pesa is a challenge that is mostly specific to Kenya and some East African countries, but it's fairly difficult for other countries to somewhat adopt and scale it. So there is some entrepreneurial spirit.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Um, yeah, and I think I used to have a friend from uni. I don't know if I think he switched to Microsoft, but there was a company that was, I guess, it was more like a money lending app, and they used to rate your credit score based on some data, and it was all using AI. So I think there's a fair amount of innovation within at least the AI space, which is what I can speak to. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the fintech space has some fair amount of innovation within
Yeah.
Kenya, especially with
Mm.
things related to M-Pesa.
Yeah.
The things surrounding it is quite interesting.
Yes.
Um, yeah, there's a lot of potential there. Um, even stuff like oh, what is that? It's I don't forget you buy it's like a pharmacy app. Um,
Oh, the one that allows you to order pharmaceutical products from an app and then they deliver it to you to your
yeah, that one got really
doorstep.
big in Kenya.
Yeah, I've heard of it and I've seen the ads when I was there, but I forgot the name. But yeah, I think
Yeah,
I understand
there's
what you
been
mean.
some
Yeah,
big stuff around that.
yeah,
So some e-commerce stuff obviously has been pretty successful in Kenya. Um,
could
yeah,
probably say that most people are fairly scrappy, which is a good thing where you make the most with the little that you have. So it's definitely good for the entrepreneurial spirit.
oh, my
Oh,
Dawa is what I'm thinking of.
uh,
Yeah. Oh yeah, Alex also said it in the chat there. Thanks, Alex. Cool. I think we're almost at time. Yeah, because we want plan to go 45 minutes here. I don't know. Yeah, or the other Alex, not you. But yeah,
Wait,
I
sorry,
don't know,
which Alex? Chat Alex or
you know, call
interview
Alex.
Alex? Okay.
Yeah. So Alex or Haney, did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
Nothing specific. I think Kenya is, not in addition to what I've said, Kenya is pretty interesting problems, interesting solutions coming up, especially in the tech space, and also interesting challenges coming up against these tech products. But I think it's a great place to at least explore the different opportunities that exist. Yeah, so I hope if you're looking to invest, I'd encourage you. Don't quote me on this, but yeah, I'd encourage you to look into the tech space. And there's great talent in there as well. I have plenty of friends who are also working there. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's new I think they've already got it, the new digital nomad visa out. For so if people are looking, Kenya is a great place to it's now easier to move to Kenya. There's a certain few requirements for the digital nomad visa. So that's an option for people to move to. I recommend the coast of Kenya. There's some great beaches. Just saying. Nairobi is also wonderful, and that's kind of the heart of the tech scene, for sure. But yeah, I mean, before people kind of invest in, the tech scene, I think like understanding it and spending some time in Kenya is kind of, the first step in like a process, and really getting to know the scene. Um, yeah, it's a process. I hope some people that want to invest go there, spend some time, get to know the scene, and then, you know, put their money in there and like really invest in Kenya because it's a great scene. There's lots happening. If people want, there's some great developers, obviously like Alex. Obviously, there's more great developers that don't currently live in Germany, as well. And if they want to hire them, I'm happy to talk. So yeah, thanks everyone.
For having me. Yeah.